I'm Elliott Forrest from WQXR, and joining me now is conductor Gerard Schwarz. His list of accomplishments would take up this entire interview, so we won't go through all of them. Needless to say, he's had been longtime conductor of the Seattle Symphony, and you can see him on television with the All-Star Orchestra on PBS. Jerry, always good to see you.
It's great to be with you, Elliott, as always. Our history goes back quite a few years, even though we're very young gentlemen.
I,
It's nice to remember those years.
I'm maybe the mostly Mozart Festival. Would have been the first time,
I
maybe?
think so, probably 25 years ago.
Yes, easily, and then lots of times on radio and then television as well. So always good to see that you're.
Remember when you were doing so much wonderful work for A&E. And
Oh, thank you. Yeah. People still fondly remember Breakfast with the Arts when there were arts on television.
nobody wants arts on television except us and millions of other people.
Right. Well, it seems to be growing, and now there's so much creativity online. Now that the concert halls are in this great pause, what are your thoughts on all of this outpouring of creativity that we've seen online?
Well, I think it's twofold. One is that the creative artists, whether they're composers or performers or personalities, producers, they're anxious, almost desperate to be part of a creative world. And when you're basically sitting at home, as you know, as I was, 2.5 months in our apartment in New York, it is limitations. I'm a conductor. That's what I do. I conduct. And if there's no orchestra to conduct, it's really rough going. So you have to use your imagination to figure out ways to be creative. And I think that's a very interesting and a positive thing. And then to see that people also want to see it. There, you know, talk about a city like New York. I mean, why would anyone live in New York? Well, you live in New York because of other people like you living in New York. And you live in New York because of the great arts and the great museums. And then the social things, the great people that live there, the great restaurants and so forth and so on. So now you live in New York and everything practically that it brings you and attracts you there, whether it's a job or otherwise, is gone. And so you sit in your apartment or in your house or wherever, and you immerse yourself, or one immerses oneself into whatever creative work you can do. When you're composing, it's easy because that's a solitary thing. If you're a writer writing books or poetry, that's easy in a sense because that's a solitary thing. I should say easier. But even that's tough going. So it's been a very challenging time, but I think the outpouring for anyone in the performing arts especially is because they want to do something. They want to be involved. I'm right now very involved in putting together the Eastern Music Festival's online summer season, educational primarily. And the outpouring from the faculty is extraordinary. They so much want to participate, and they have ideas about what kind of teaching we can do and of significance. So it's really marvelous to see so many people thinking and caring deeply about the arts.
Are you worried at all about the level of higher education because you're involved in so many educational activities and they've had to move online? Some campuses are thinking they're going to open in the fall, but most are not. Is that going to be just as effective as being in person?
Well, in my world, of course, it can't be because my world is conducting orchestras. And if you can't assemble an orchestra, I'm not saying you can't assemble it virtually, but in reality, you can't. If you can't assemble an orchestra to play together, then there is, what can you, yes, you can educate. You can educate about the score, you can educate about the music, and you can educate about the composer. I mean, there's all kinds of education you can do. I mean, I have the antibodies, right? How long is it going to last? I mean, some people say 3 weeks, some people say 3 years. I mean, I don't know how long it's going to, no one knows yet. But I hope that soon we'll know how long the antibodies that I have will last or make me feel very comfortable.
Did you get sick through all of this?
In March, Jody and I both had cases of the COVID-19, not severe, but we had the symptoms. And
Wow.
we isolated ourselves in our apartment and we stayed there for a month without seeing or anyone going out. And then we were tested. And sure enough, we had it, but we were negative, but we had the antibodies. So on the one hand, isn't it terrible that we had it? On the other hand, antibodies, and I've already had it. Is there going to be a second wave? Is it going to happen again? We just don't know, do we?
We don't know. But I'm so thankful that it was mild for you. That hasn't obviously been the story for everybody.
No, it certainly hasn't been. And we've lost some very dear friends. And as I'm sure you have, I mean, there are people who know no one who even has had it. And yet in our world, in New York, there were so many people that we know and dear friends who died from it. So it's very tragic.
It is indeed. In the work you do in Miami, tell us, are you teaching conducting, composing, all of the above?
I teach conducting, and I conduct the Frost Symphony Orchestra. I also work with any student that wants it. So this past year, because the conductor's expertise is in, I hired, probably 80 musicians in Seattle, and I hired mostly Mozart at one time. I mean, you hire a lot of musicians. So you understand what the audition process is like. You understand how the excerpt should be played. You hear things, as a conductor should hear things, that sometimes even the instrumental teachers don't hear because they have certain traditions. That's not bad, but a different point of view can be interesting. So this year I've taught lessons in violin, viola, cello, bass, flute, oboe, clarinet, horn, trumpet, trombone, tuba. I mean, so anybody that knocks on my door gets a lesson. Now that I'm actually a professor and teaching weekly, it's really really exciting for me, and I'm enjoying it. So yes, I teach primarily conducting and conduct the orchestra, but I'm just I love the colleagues too. Great musicians, great leadership, a wonderful dean named Shelley Berg, great composer, arranger, tremendous pianist. There's just so many great artists, and across the hall from my studio was Charlie Castleman, one of the great violin teachers used to be at Eastman for so many years. It's really been a very exciting time for me, and I'm hoping and praying that we can begin again in September. Again, as I said, Julio Frank, great president of the university, hopefully will guide us and guide us well.
There's sometimes, particularly with an actor, for me, you can tell right away, even a young performer, you can tell they have it. And I'm just curious with a young conductor, whether it's musicality or personality or physicality, when you spot a young conductor, and you go, they have it. What would that be?
Well, that was a very interesting and difficult question for me, because here I was auditioning all these conductors, right, who want to be in my program. So I took 5, and there were probably, I don't know how many, 40, 50 who were interested. And so I called, I said, how do I judge? I mean, basically, I could listen to all of their tapes and all of their videos, and I believe I could help each of them in some fashion or another. And if they would study with me, they would be better conductors, hopefully. I'm not trying to praise myself, but I think I could offer something. And so then if you're going to pick 5, how do you pick them? You're exactly right. So I called my friend Sam Jones. Sam's a fine composer, and he ran the conducting program down at Rice, where he was, I think, the dean, and he, whatever his position was, that he started the Shepherd School. And I said, Sam, what do I do? How do I decide? Is it the quality of the video? I mean, really, are we going to judge someone's future on how good their video is? How horrible is that? Should I shut the video off and only listen to the music? Or should I shut the music off and see how they're communicating with their hands? And he said to me exactly what you said. You'll see. You'll do your best to pick the people you want to see live. You'll see the ones that have the spark. You'll know right away. And I thought to myself, oh, come on, what a cop-out that is. You're going to see someone with the spark. So I took a lot more. I mean, I was advised to take, 7 or 8 people for the live audition. Well, I think I took 15 because it's hard, because I see the talent. So you're right. What do you do? Well, the more experienced you are, the better you look. Is that really what you're looking for? People with experience? Well, I only teach masters and doctoral students, so They have to be mature in some fashion. They have to know music. Okay, that's another criteria. Anyway, you go through the list, and then I had the 15 come and interview them. So that's the personality part. What are they like as people? And you have to have a deep knowledge and a curiosity. I think the curiosity is the most important. You can gain the knowledge, but if you're not curious, it's tough going. I mean, I'll tell you a quick story. I know I'm taking over here, Elliott. I apologize. So those months in New York, every morning I get up and I turn on QXR.
Oh, thank you.
And Jeff Burgess was on, and I always enjoy him. And he played pieces, most of which I knew, and some of which I didn't know. The ones I knew, how's that person doing it? I would not normally pick up my CDs or go on Spotify and listen to the Brahms Haydn variations. But one morning he was playing the Brahms Haydn variation. Interesting interpretation. How are they doing it? Or a piece I didn't know. And so in a way, it also spurs you on to think about other things. So here you are in quarantine, and think of all the great music you can study or restudy that you don't have time to study or listen to. I mean, it's been difficult, but it's also been wonderful on many levels.
I'm so happy that QXR has been part of that quarantine journey. I've talked to a number of people in this series, and Maren Alsop got extremely introspective during this time period, trying to figure out her role in the universe, really, her relationship to the planet. Some people have discussed with me that I think this is a little what retirement feels like. I'm curious in those quiet moments, what maybe lessons you feel you have learned.
Well, I've learned a lot of lessons, as you can imagine, because you do have to become a little introspective. You also have to, at least I have to, delve more deeply into the music that I care about. And for me, of course, a lot of it's been family. What we've done as a family, because I have 4 children, as you know, 2 grandchildren, and I have 3 of my children are married. And every Friday night, we celebrate Shabbat together. On the one hand, it's introspective, it's thinking about the future, but it's also having a chance to watch television, read a book, which in our lives we so rarely have time to do. So it's not all been terrible. It's the terrible part, of course, is the illnesses and especially the deaths. It's hard to even fathom those people that we care so much about who are no longer with us. But then, we have to move forward. What choice do we have?
Gerard Schwarz, always good to see you. I relish spending time with you here, and I look forward to the time where we can be in the same room together, and maybe even more importantly, or just as importantly, seeing you on stage again.
Elliott, you're a joy. You're always so thoughtful and caring about our world and your world, and I thank you for that.